Have you ever stared at the ceiling at 2 in the morning, completely baffled by a choice you just made? Are you the person your friends always come to for advice, yet your own life sometimes feels like a series of completely avoidable mistakes? Do you ever look at a terrible situation you got yourself into and think, I am way too smart to have done this? There is a strange assumption we all make. We assume that a high intellect equals good life choices, but that is rarely the truth. In fact, being highly intelligent can actually make you much more vulnerable to some of the most destructive psychological traps out there. Think of your brain like a high-end GPS system. A normal GPS takes the standard, straightforward road, but a superpowered GPS, it sees every side street, every alleyway, and every potential shortcut. Sometimes it overcalculates and routes you right into a swamp just to save 2 seconds of driving. That is what a highly active brain does. It overcomplicates the simple things. But why does overthinking actually make you pick the worst possible option? And what is the invisible mental blind spot that only highly intelligent people suffer from? Let's talk about the way you argue with yourself. When an average person makes a bad choice, they usually realize it pretty quickly. The feedback loop is simple. They touch a hot stove, it burns, they pull their hand away, and they stop. But a smart person? A smart person is like a highly skilled defense lawyer inside their own mind. If you want to make a bad decision, your brain will not simply let you touch the stove. It will instantly generate 20 brilliant, logical-sounding reasons why touching the stove is actually a genius move. You convince yourself that the heat will build calluses, improve your pain tolerance, and ultimately make you a stronger person. You use your intelligence to justify your self-sabotage. Have you ever talked yourself into staying in a toxic situation just because you could perfectly analyze exactly why the other person was acting that way? You confuse understanding a problem with actually solving it. This brings us to that invisible blind spot. Psychologists literally call it the bias blind spot. Studies show that people with higher cognitive abilities are actually worse at recognizing their own biases. You are so used to being right. You are so used to being the smartest person in the room. Because of that, your brain assumes your gut feelings are objective facts. You think you are operating on pure logic, while you are actually being driven by fear, ego, or a desperate need for comfort. The blind spot of a smart person is the unquestioned belief in their own rationality. But what about the overthinking? Why do you freeze when it is finally time to make a move? Smart people suffer deeply from complexity bias. If a solution to a problem is too simple, you simply do not trust it. You feel like a complex mind requires a complex answer. Imagine a massive supercomputer built to simulate the physics of the entire universe. If you ask it to calculate 1 plus 1, it might search its entire database of quantum mechanics just to be absolutely sure. It freezes on the easiest tasks because it brings too much processing power to a simple question. That is exactly why you can solve massive, complicated problems at work, but you cannot figure out what to eat for dinner. Or worse, you cannot figure out if you should quit the job that is making you miserable. Overthinking does not lead you to the best option. It just depletes your energy until you give up and take the path of least resistance. I know how exhausting this is. I have spent months agonizing over a single decision, drawing up endless pros and cons lists, reading every article on the internet, only to end up doing the exact thing I knew was wrong from day one. It makes you feel like an absolute imposter. How can you know so much, but apply so little? There is a specific psychological trap that keeps smart people anchored to failure. It traps them in bad relationships, dead-end careers, and terrible investments for years longer than they should stay. Do you know what it is? It is the belief that you can fix anything if you just think about it hard enough. Smart people hate giving up. Quitting feels like a failure of intelligence. If a relationship is failing, a highly analytical person will not just walk away. They will treat it like a puzzle to be solved. They will analyze the attachment styles, read all the psychology books, and constantly adjust their communication strategy. They will pour years of mental energy into a situation that simply required them to walk out the door. Your intelligence becomes a prison. You stay because you believe you can outsmart a fundamentally bad situation. It is the sunk cost fallacy on steroids, fueled by your own intellectual ego. So, how do you actually fix this without having to lower your intelligence? How do you stop your brilliant brain from making dumb choices? You have to separate your intelligence from your wisdom. Intelligence is knowing exactly how a car engine works. Wisdom is knowing not to drive that car into a brick wall. To make better decisions, you have to stop trusting your brain's ability to argue. You are too good at convincing yourself of lies. Instead, start relying on external systems and hard boundaries. Set unbreakable rules for yourself. If a choice violates your core boundaries or ruins your peace, it does not matter how brilliantly you can justify it in your head. The answer is simply no. Stop looking for the perfect, complex solution to every problem you face. Sometimes the simplest, most obvious answer is the only answer. You do not need to outthink your problems. You just need to allow yourself to do the obvious thing. Have you been using your intelligence to talk yourself out of a good decision lately? Or maybe you have been using it to stay comfortable in a bad one. It takes a massive amount of courage to sit down and admit that your own brain might be tricking you. But once you realize that being smart does not make you immune to being foolish, you finally gain the clarity you need to change your life. Take a deep breath. Forgive yourself for those past choices. You were doing the best you could with a brain that loves to complicate things. And the next time you face a major life decision, try thinking a little less.